Hey everyone, today is writing day. Looking at essays again, this is just like for most of you, it'd be a review, basic stuff, intro. I'm using a book called The Practical Stylist as the basis of this talk today. It shows you basically like the style of how to set it up. And it's pretty simple. It's almost like paint by numbers. I'm going to show you exactly how you write an intro. And if you do, I have a little list. And if you do everything on that bullet, every chevron on that list, it basically it's an automatically shows you how to write the intro to an essay. All right, here we go. Okay, so adapted from the Practical Stylist, like I said, this is the introduction, the basics of essay writing, the introduction. For most of you, this is going to be a review, but it's important, and this is something I'll leave up. You can definitely use the handout I gave you in class. It's on like legal size paper that shows all this stuff as well. I'll put on my website, and it is something you can look back to because these basics are something that you can use going forward in post-secondary for sure. So the opening or introduction. The introduction introduces your reader to your general topic, the body points, and clearly states the thesis. All of this is done in order, which is followed throughout the essay. So often I'll be reading a student's essay, and the order in which they introduce their body points is not the order that you get in the essay. So it kind of has to match. So whatever however you introduce your points in the intro should be the way that you write them in your actual paper. And if you get to the end and it's not the same, you can go back and rewrite your intro to make it match what you want it to match within the paper. Okay. So your opening paragraph must contain your main idea. This is where the thesis statement goes. So the thesis statement is the central idea. We talked about that last week. It has to be in there. For me and for the Practical Stylist, the most emphatic place for your main idea is the last sentence of your opening paragraph. Therefore, your first sentence should be a general statement piquing the reader's interest, so sort of a hook. The intro paragraph or the opening is like a funnel. It goes from general to specific. So you can start very general and wide and then work your way down more and more narrow to your central idea, your thesis statement. So this is maybe a little bit more visual of this sort of funnel. So the opening invitation is general, wide, topical information. It becomes increasingly specific, justifying and giving a rationale for why you're writing what you're writing. Even more specific, defining terms, indicating your body points, and then specific and focused at the end, your thesis statement. Okay? So this is the list. If you use these chevrons in this bulleted list, you write a sentence or two for each of these points, your intro paragraph has everything it needs. Okay, so this will show you how to do it, sort of paint by number style. Very, very simple and basic. You're not going to win a Pulitzer Prize for your writing, but it does follow this specific logical order. So generalize. Start with a subject statement, a kind of open topic sentence for the whole essay. So wide, just, something on the topic, but not really specific. Justify or give a rationale. So you're going to provide background information. Why or what you are discussing is important or significant. So define any terms that are required for the reader's understanding of the essay. So that probably won't, for this, if you were to write a full essay, which we're not going to do, we're going to do for your next assignment, and sort of the second to last assignment of the year is going to be an outline. Defining terms would be for this essay would be to define what magic realism is. Define that term. For those of you who go on to post-secondary to do social sciences, that's important. The defining terms part is really important to any essay in those fields because you want to be able to speak the same language as everybody else. So when I did a master's in education and I was writing about character education, I had to tell the reader what I meant by that. what I meant by moral education, what I meant by character education. So similarly in science and engineering, you may have to define kind of jargon terms that go with that in that field so that everyone knows what you're talking about. So it's not really that necessary for this course, but going forward, defining your terms and defining like what you mean by certain theoretical or sort of technical jargon within your paper is important. So define your terms and then indicate the direction your essay will take by briefly stating your main points or arguments in the order which they appear. So in the order which they appear, keep them in the same order. And then the thesis statement. So state the thesis of your essay in a clear sentence. Remember, this is what you're trying to prove. Everything you write in your essay should go towards proving the thesis. And then you may need to explain or expand that thesis so the reader is clear about your idea of what you're trying to prove. That's kind of an optional one, the expand part at the end. So if you write these 6 bullets, you'll be well on your way to writing a really good intro. So definitely something for you to look you can use in the future. In post-secondary, you'll come out with a pretty good structure for any essay. Okay, so now we're going to look at some examples, and I'm going to leave an example for you. So the examples are coming up. I'm going to leave an example for you of an intro on my website, and I want you to go and find those 5 or 6 chevrons, those 5 or 6 parts of an introduction, and I want you to sort of maybe highlight them in different colors. So I'll start with an example, and then there'll be one for you to do on the website. So here we go. So what we have here is an essay about children's fantasy novels, and what you can see in this is the way that the intro is structured. It follows those specific kind of points, those specific things, and I'll show you exactly how it's broken down. Then then there'll be one for you on the website. So here we go. So the first one, generalized. So starting wide, starting with the sort of the topic. So existing within mythology since the dawn of writing, dragons will continue to be dominant recurring characters as long as people continue to invent and enjoy creating fiction set in fantastic secondary worlds that are not our own. So there's the first part, generalizing. Okay, justify. Despite the runaway mainstream success of Hollywood adaptations, children's fantasy novels tap into timeless myth and morality. So we're going from more specific into children's novels, right? So it's starting off with like just fantasy, and then children's novels, then indicate. Okay, so there's no real define here, but indicate. And this is the 3 points. In C.S. Lewis' Chronicles of Narnia, dragons are a symbol of sin and of humanity's inability to achieve salvation without the help of Christ. In J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit, dragons are evil tricksters who murder innocent townspeople and steal the fruits of hard-working, jewel-mining dwarves. In Ursula Le Guin's Earthsea cycle, dragons are both dangerous and wise. They are the key to all magic and the distant relative of humans, especially mages. In J.K. Rowling's The Harry Potter series, dragons are wild beasts that lack speech but are studied like sharks or lions by field biologists in an effort to understand them and ensure that they are not discovered by ignorant non-magical muggles. So there's the indicate. So there's the 3 or 4, in this case 4 points. And then state, here's the state would be the thesis. In much of the 20th century, the dragons of children's fantasy have been integral archetypes that help make the secondary world complete. And expand. Within the field of children's literature, specifically the genre of children's fantasy, the dragon is a recurring character that has existed in mythic narratives since ancient times. So you can see it's kind of a little bit clunky as you go from one part to the next, but it has all the parts. It indicates by showing the 3 points. It has the thesis, and so there's something that the person is going to prove as they go through, and it's all those parts, like a sentence or 2 for each of those. Okay, one more. So if we look here, there's a color code to this: yellow, green, light blue, purple, dark blue, red. So each of those I'm gonna make correspond with below. So if I click on the highlighter here, I'm on the highlighter, generalized. So let's look at this here. So this is a written by Matilda Murphy, my favorite student. Not really your favorite student, because she does the work before you get to do it. So starts off with a quote, and that's kind of an interesting way of starting an essay. So this is a sort of a pretend magic realism intro, and so we're going to use the colors to correspond. So generalize here. So we think the first part is a quote. Trap, horrible trap, at one's birth it is sprung. Some last day must arrive. When you need to get out of this body, bad enough, then we bring a baby here. The terms of the trap are compounded. That baby must also depart. All pleasure should be tainted by that knowledge. But hopeful dear us, we forget. Saunders 156. So as George Saunders states in his novel Lincoln in the Bardo, all people are faced with a beginning and an end. The world can be very indifferent to the suffering and daily struggle faced by people. So that's all generalized. So we're getting a little bit closer here. Moreover, many are faced with trauma in their lives. This is reflected in much of contemporary literature. Characters face alienation, death, and catastrophic tragedy, just like many do in their real lives. Okay, I'm going to pick green here. I think that's it right there. And now, define. One popular mode in contemporary fiction that deals with seemingly insurmountable tragedy is magic realism. Magic realism is, and then I quote here, a mode or genre in prose fiction often associated with postmodernism and characterized by a mixture of realistic and fantastic elements. Works of magic realism are set in the real world and treat the magical or supernatural as an inherent, even mundane part of a reality, requiring no explanation. So go back up here. Define, so light blue. I'll pick my light blue highlighter here. Right, define. So defining terms here, defining what magic realism is. And now the next one, indicate. Let's see if it indicate. When examined, it is clear that magic realism is uniquely positioned to deal with the trauma of the human condition. Across literary forms like Toni Morrison's novel Beloved, Dennis Johnson's short story Train Dreams, and Alejandro Inarritu's film Birdman, magic realist texts often share several important commonalities. Okay, so that is indicate. We're going to take purple for that one. So purple, I think this one's even longer than that. So let's look down here some more. Purple. These commonalities include characters faced with catastrophic tragedy, characters' access to everyday, inexplicable yet mundane magic, and characters moving forward despite the darkness. I think that's it. That's the indicate. There's your 3 points. So we have, I'll underline them here. Fate, there's point 1, tragedy. There's point 2, mundane magic. There's point 3, moving forward. And here's the thesis, isn't it? So that's what's thesis again? Thesis is state. So we're going to get the dark blue out here, dark blue. Oh, that's still purple there. I made a boo-boo. So go back to purple here. And then faced with the all too recognizable blandness of death and despair, magic realism acts as a kind of balm for life's grim realities. This is a downer essay, whoever's writing this. This is a total downer. But the good thing is we figured all the parts out. Now there is no further expand or explanation in this. So that's kind of an optional one, the red one, and the define can be as well. But if you have these, the more you have, the better. So that one there, that gives us all, if we look at this intro, we have all the different parts of the intro. So if you were to write an intro one day, you would be able to just use these, if you use these chevrons here and write a sentence or two for each, you will have a good introduction to your paper. Okay, so what you have to do on the website is I put another intro to an essay written by a former student, Danny Dunkelblum, and Danny wrote this intro So what I want you to do is to go through and find those different things, generalized all the way to state. And I want you to color them just like I did, okay? So I'll have that all set up for you on the website, okay? Thanks so much, guys. Have a good one, and we'll see you Friday.